Mayor Pro Tem Alan Gotthealth,
Here.
Councilmember Brendan Elwood, Councilmember Mark Jocelyn,
Present.
Councilmember Heather Cullen,
Here.
Councilmember Christina Rustick,
Here.
Councilmember Susan Torgerson,
Here.
Councilmember Errol Tremolata.
Here.
All are present, Your Honor, with the exception of Councilmember Elwood.
Thank you.
Just point of order, he is excused. He did call and let us know.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you so much. Will the clerk please lead us in the flag salute?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Okay, before we go any further, item 8, presentation on recent power outage updates has been canceled. Unfortunately, the representative from PSC wasn't able to make tonight's meeting. It is an item that will be rescheduled in the near future. Okay, consent agenda. We will now move on to a consent agenda. We have 6 items on the consent agenda. Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, motion approved by Councilmember Colin and seconded by Councilmember Rustick. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we move on unanimously there. Before we move on to citizens and comments, as indicated in tonight's agenda, if you are attending remotely and would like to submit public comment, please submit your written comments via in-person drop-off, email, fax. Again, email to sopadol@northbendwa.gov by 5 p.m. on the day of the meeting. We are no longer taking public comments for those attending remotely via Zoom unless you have reached out to the city clerk in advance of the meeting to request accommodation. You have anybody? Anyone?
Michael Thomas is online and would like to provide public comment.
Thank you. He may.
Michael, you're muted.
Sure. Actually, the host had muted me. I wasn't able to unmute. Can you hear me correctly?
We can.
Yes.
Thanks. Michael Thomas, 1231 La Forest Drive, SE. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I view that it's very important to allow citizens to participate remotely and comment. The past 2 city council meetings I view were not correctly handled in this regard. Folks can request to participate and comment remotely under the OPMA really for any reason. There's another very good reason that this is done, and this is to accommodate folks with disabilities who might have difficulty attending a meeting in person, folks with mobility issues, folks that may be using transcription services and other things that are an aid to their participation. And I feel that this is extremely important to point out. Additionally, when folks participate remotely, they do expect the function of this to be reliable. So in the future, if, for example, audio or video is not available, I would call upon the meeting host, chair, or council to call for recess or even halt the meeting. Again, it's important for people to rely on this, and it's not just simply a convenience. It is their disability accommodation, and it is part of open public meetings. In my view, folks have a right to participate. That includes hearing and commenting. It's unfortunate also some of the things that have brought this about. I am, for example, not at all tolerant of hate speech, but I'm concerned about items such as Zoom bombing and this being really used as an excuse to really deprive people of their right to speak. Well-ordered citizens and polite citizens who are in order really should always have the right to speak, really regardless of advanced comment or whatnot. Finally, it's unfortunate that PSE was not able to attend tonight. I think there's some very important questions that need to be asked, even beyond the recent power outages. For example, what is Puget Sound Energy doing to reduce wildfire hazards due to, let's say, trees falling on power lines, or reducing spark hazards that may ignite, We saw pictures online of trees falling on people's facilities. We saw fires for this. And that's a sort of a key question as we go forward. The other item I think for Puget Sound Energy was the calls to conserve. In early January, both natural gas and electricity, and including flex events, asking people to cut back voluntarily due to both the extreme weather demand and a failure of the natural gas facilities. A view that this is cause to believe there's insufficient natural gas and electricity generation capability to support really the present development in our area. And then going forward, how is our grid and natural gas going to support even the future development and future electrification plans? Thank you very much, and this concludes my comment.
Thank you, Michael. We will now move on to citizen comments if there's nobody else. If you at this time have something more to say that's not on our agenda tonight, please step forward. And Deb, please say your name, where you're at, where you live.
Thank you so much. Deborah Landers, 14615 438th Avenue Southeast in North Bend. And I'm here for a couple of reasons. First of all, North Bend Art and Industry wants to express our utmost gratitude for being awarded one of the Human Services grants from the city of North Bend. I don't think you realize how powerful this is to a relatively young organization, but it allows us to expand our programming, support the 2 festivals that we have planned annually each year, and continue to support the artists and our community in the Snoqualmie Valley. So starting with what I'm most excited about and what's being passed around is one of those new programs that we've been trying to get done over almost 2 years. It's been in the work. We already have a writers program for adults and young adults who want to be authors, want to learn how to write, maybe are published authors and want to share their knowledge with newer writers. We now are going to be starting a youth writers group in partnership with the King County Library System. Twice a month, we have this brilliant 15-year-old high school student who'll be facilitating youth to learn all levels of writing and discuss their writing twice a month at the King County Library. So we're super excited about that. That kicks off March 4th. Please share that. We'd love to make sure, especially that first meeting, has a lot of kids and a lot of enthusiasm there. And then the second thing that I wanted to mention is Art Off the Rails, the first festival this year. It's done in collaboration with the city of Snoqualmie and the Northwest Railway Museum. That is now planned for June the 15th at William Henry Taylor Park. We're counting on it being bigger, better, and maybe not rainy. So, and that's all I have. Any questions? We're growing, we're grateful, we're here to stay, and it's going to be an exciting 2024.
Great to see you, Deb. Thanks so much. Anybody else? Anyone online that's waved their hand that I've possibly missed at this time? No, we're good. Okay, let's move on to announcements, presentations, and appointments. We will now have item 7, proclamation Twin Peaks Day. Guess that's on me. Here I go. Okay, get ready. It's a little long-winded, but it's important. Okay, whereas the television show Twin Peaks, created by Mark Frost and David Lynch, debuted in 1990 and changed television forever by breaking new ground and inspiring numerous other television shows. And whereas Twin Peaks returned to television again in 2017, challenging viewers anew and garnering awards and critical acclaim. And whereas Twin Peaks captivated television viewers worldwide with scenes filmed in North Bend and the Snoqualmie Valley that emphasize the natural beauty and history of our region. And whereas Twin Peaks has drawn tourists year-round to North Bend, the Snoqualmie Valley, and the greater Seattle area for more than 30 years. And whereas Twin Peaks has placed many North Bend and Snoqualmie Valley locations, landmarks, and businesses into popular culture, not limited to Tweed's Cafe, Snoqualmie Falls, Mount Si, All LA State Park, the Salish Lodge and Spa, the Snoqualmie Lumbers Mill, the Dirtfish Rally School, the Lishan Brewery, E.J. Roberts Park, Mount Si Motel, Roadhouse Restaurant and Inn, the Centennial Log, and Reinig Rogue. And whereas February 24th is celebrated by Twin Peaks fans worldwide as the day when the character of FBI Special Agent Dale Cooper arrived in the town of Twin Peaks. Now, therefore, I, Mary Miller, Mayor, do hereby proclaim Saturday, February 24th, 2024 as Twin Peaks Day in the city of North Bend, and call upon all citizens to join in the celebration throughout the Snoqualmie Valley with donuts, cherry pie, and a darn fine cup of coffee. Thank you. All right, do we have a gentleman tonight? Yep, okay. All right. Do you want to speak first before you present? Well, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead of you.
That's fine, no
I'll
problem.
be here waiting for you.
I'll just quickly say, thank you, Mayor Miller. This is the 8th year that the city of North Bend has recognized Twin Peaks Day. It was something I started as a way of trying to help encourage local businesses to engage with the fans and encourage tourism. And I think we're in year 8, and I think it's been quite successful. You were the 3rd mayor of North Bend to partner with me on this. And this time I knew, oh, I've met Mayor Miller in other contexts, and she was photographing Twin Peaks events. I don't have to explain this to her.
Oh,
So,
watch
thank
out,
you
I'm
so
everywhere. Thank you. And just for everybody to know, what is your name?
I'm Carl Reinsch. I'm a Snoqualmie resident.
Oh, thank you. It's wonderful to be here, and I can't wait to come present this to you.
I want to do a photograph.
Well, that's a little bit of fun. Where are we? Okay, I'm ready to move on to commission and committee reports. And let's go with Mr. Jocelyn, Community and Economic Development. Would you care to give us your information?
Yes, the Community and Economic Development Committee met earlier today. We discussed the revised or updated Economic Alliance MOU, which is on tonight's agenda. It did come before us the month earlier for discussion, and because it's a collaboration between 6 different parties, there were some revisions. We are pleased to see it on tonight's agenda. We discussed a contract for demolition at 230 Main Street and agreed to move that to our next regular agenda for discussion and hopeful approval by this body. And we got an update on an RFP for that same property as staff moves forward for the next phase of that exciting undertaking. And that was it. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Jocelyn. Mr. Tremolata, would you like to speak about finance and administration, please?
Sure. We met on February 13th in the conference room and discussed the solid waste and recycling rates, which are on tonight's agenda. So we'll discuss those, I'm sure, a bit further later. And then effectively went over sort of some planning stuff for 2024 in preparation for our new finance director, which will start in a couple of weeks here. And that was pretty cut and dry.
Thank you very much. Ms. Rustick, Public Health and Safety, please.
Thank you. Yes, the Public Health and Safety Committee met on February 6th at 4 o'clock in the City Hall adjournment room. We discussed an update from the fire chief, deputy chief. We also received an update from the police chief Lynch, and then discussed a memorandum of recent criminal activity that he had sent to the council, and he shared at that evening's council meeting in more detail. Our next meeting will be on March 5th. That's it.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Colin for Transportation and Public Works.
Thank you. Transportation and Public Works last met on January 23rd at 4 o'clock here at City Hall. We had a lighter than normal agenda.
Brian Tucker spoke to motion authorizing geotechnical engineering services contract with Terracon, which is a private development. Mr. Regos talked about a motion authorizing reimbursement to Skyview Metropolitan Parks Department for pavement overlay on Ryberry Way associated with our new tenant Trailhead Park. Tom Moore talked about a contract with Capital Assist and Pavement Services for pavement management services. Tom Moore spoke about formalizing pavement management policy for transportation. Mr. Regos discussed possible $17 million grant for sewering Silver Creek community. And the last item was Mr. Regos formalizing snow removal policy and emergency management. And our next meeting is next month. I want to say February 27th. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Colin, and Mr. Gotthealth.
Well, I've got two items on my agenda, right? The one, January 2024 work study. We talked about regional committee liaisons and got a bunch of people involved in regional committees. Thank you, council, for stepping up to that. We had a review of the decision card process, of which we'll move forward at one of our next work studies. And that was it. We also had a retreat that we had. And at the retreat, we talked about 2024 policy, project, and program work plan. We had a discussion about the biennial budget for 2025 and 2026. We discussed the west and east end developments, the police contract, the 2030 Maine affordable housing, complete street plans, decision card process again, outdoor recreation marketing campaign, emergency preparedness, which we're starting to work on. It's good. We made some city council, mayor, and staff working agreements during that process. Talked about our committee process and how we can make that more efficient. And that was it. That was a rousing day. I appreciate everybody's involvement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gotthealth, and Mike McCarty with the City Planning, Parks, and Economic Development Commission reports, please.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Planning Commission met on February 7th, and they held a public hearing for the development agreement with Peak View LLC for the Sirius Sports Facility on Bolch Avenue. That development agreement transferred the obligations from the previous property owner to a new property owner and extended some timeframes for completion of the project. Planning Commission recommended approval of that DA, which was included in the consent agenda for tonight's meeting. The Planning Commission will next meet on March 6th, and they'll be discussing emergency housing requirements under recent amendments to the Growth Management Act and discuss amendments to the housing element as a part of the city's 2024 comprehensive plan update. Of note, the chair of the Planning Commission will also be attending your next meeting on March 5th to present the Planning Commission's annual report and 2024 work plan. The Parks Commission met on January 24th. At that meeting, they reviewed the tree canopy assessment that was prepared for the city by our consultant Planet Geo and reviewed and recommended some associated draft urban forestry policies to add to the city's energy and sustainability element with the 2024 comp plan update. They also recommended expending up to $15,000 for work associated with the new canoe play structure at the Dahlgren Family Park, which resembles a tribal canoe. That work would include having a Snoqualmie tribal artist paint the canoe in appropriate tribal imagery and developing and installing some interpretive signs that would help tell the story of the Snoqualmie tribe's canoe history to tie it to the play structure. They also discussed potential locations and options for planning a future dog park in North Bend, and also considered public comment received at the meeting concerning interests by some citizens in planning for a public community pea patch garden at a city park or other public property. The Parks Commission will next meet on March 27th and will discuss potential survey questions they're developing to provide to the public concerning planning for that dog park and community garden. The Economic Development Commission met on January 23rd, and at that meeting, the commissioners discussed the pros and cons of establishing a tax increment finance zone and its applicability to supporting economic development in the east end of North Bend. In addition, they reviewed the Commission's 2024 work plan, and that work would include a filmmaker guide to include a simplified application and approval process and fee schedule, a business sign guide to improve transparency and simplify the application process for signs, and a small business expansion guide to facilitate business expansion for small developers and businesses. At their next meeting, the Economic Development Commission on February 27th will review draft small business expansion guide and review and discuss the Washington FilmWorks database of North Bend filming locations to determine if additional locations need to be added to that database.
Thank you, Mr. McCarty. That was quite a load of a lot of information and really positive information. Mr. Gottelf, I'm going to go bounce back to you for East Side Fire and Rescue.
Thank you. Let me get that.
Sorry.
That's
Lots of
okay.
quick.
My bad. Okay, so East Side Fire and Rescue met on February 8th, 2024 in person. We had a discussion about a surplus items that we have on that we're putting in surplus. We discussed revision of our audit officers since we've changed a bunch of directors. And then we basically discussed the RSVP for the recognition awards, which will be in March. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gottelf. We'll move on to regional committee reports. Does anyone on council have anything to report on? Mr. Tremolata.
SCA PIC committee had our first meeting of the year. There's new PIC chairs, Chris Roberts from Shoreline, and we effectively covered three major items, most regarding legislation that's in flight right now, some dying, some still with a heartbeat. Session ends March 7th, but the highlights were around public safety, property taxes, Growth Management Act, and Homeless Authority. So most of the property tax increases in rent control legislation seemingly are not going to pass through both houses at the current state. There are some bills regarding policing, police recruiting, part-time police officers, which are still being debated as we speak. So they may continue on. And then probably the most hotly debated item of the evening was the King County Regional Homeless Authority, which covers, or I should say holds $225 million operating budget. And of the 38 cities, it was a very robust discussion around who is getting those funds. Are the smaller cities getting equal share of those funds? And they most recently did a point in time count for homelessness. And there was very colorful debate about whether that was properly performed, the questions involved in that, and how that affects the allocation of funds for what regions. So I think that's going to be a discussion going forward quite a bit for SCA, as well as, which we didn't fully touch, but the Growth Management Act as well. And I actually got to cast a vote for our own Susan Torgerson to be a member of the Growth Management Act subcommittee, I believe is the group. Alter, yes. So she's formally on our representative. Yeah, and so there's more to come. Session, like as I said, session closes March 7th. So we'll see how some of this stuff goes in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you for that very full and enlightening report, Mr. Tremolata. Anybody else from council? Miss Colon.
King County Board of Health had a meeting on February 15th at 1 o'clock via Zoom. We had a briefing from the director, Dr. Fazil Khan. The board will be discussing the 6-year strategic plan beginning in March and April. The current priorities for the 6-year strategic plan are mental health, gun violence, homelessness, and the opioid crisis. There will be new rules and regulations related to fees for reduction for smaller businesses for food establishments, specifically food trucks, farmers markets, and food banks. And they will start providing food safety training to food workers in multiple languages. And they have declared a state of emergency regarding the opioid crisis. Fentanyl is now the leading cause of death for 18 to 45-year-olds in King County. The next meeting will be held on March 21st at 1 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Colon. That was a almost delightful report. A lot of information. Anybody else? No? Okay, I guess we'll move on to our main agenda then. Item 9, AB 24-022, ordinance amending taxes, rates, and fees schedule regarding solid waste and recycling rates. Mr. Rigos, would you be kind enough to provide the staff report?
Sure. Thanks, Mayor Mary, and good evening, council. Page 47 in your packet. I'm subbing tonight for our finance director on this ordinance for amending our taxes, rates, and fees schedule. We do this several times per year. This action tonight is simply putting this on our taxes, rates, and fees schedule. If you recall, and we have several new council members, but we had a very long and competitive procurement process in 2022 that lasted the entire year, and into 2023, the city of North Bend had enjoyed a relationship with Republic for 11 years, and that started in 2012, and that went 7 years, and then we did agreed to two-year time extensions that brings the contract with Republic to a close on March 31st of this year. And then on April 1st of 2024, we will be starting a contract with Recology. So we're looking forward to working with our new solid waste provider, Recology. We think they will have some value-added services. It's unfortunate that the costs are increasing, but and they are increasing quite a bit. We did enjoy some lower rates for quite a while, and there are some reasons why rates have increased quite a bit. But that's where we're at. So that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Regos. Thank you. Any questions from council?
Is it true that regardless of which waste management contract we were to pick, that the rates were going to go up with all three of those different contractors?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. We received prices from 3 contractors. They were Waste Management, Recology, and Republic in summer of 2022. And all 3 of those prices from those contractors went up a tremendous amount. Waste Management was the highest, and then there was Recology and Republic, and there was a very small gap between those 2 companies.
Anybody else? Mr. Tremolo?
We discussed this at the finance subcommittee as well. Is there a landing page on the city website or anything where people can get more information? I think
Yeah.
most of us got a flyer in the mail.
Yes, there is.
Alright.
In fact, we were updating it today, so
Yep.
it should be ready for residents and council. Go check it out.
Thank you, Ms. Rustick.
Yeah, so just to kind of clarify, and I know we've exchanged a number of emails. I appreciate you answering many of my questions, but the contract was initiated with Recology March of 2023. Is that correct?
March 21st, 2023, our city council last year approved it. I think when it was signed was April 4th or so, a week or 2 later. So yes, about a year ago
Right.
is when those rates were locked in. We had agreed to. Since then, Recology has purchased trucks. You know, each of these garbage trucks costs $1 million each or whatever they are, $1.5 million. And figuring out our routes and new delivery model up here. And so they've been busy at work for the last year, even though they aren't serving us yet.
So the new trucks that you mentioned and all those things, I assume they were part of their original bid when the RFP went out.
Correct.
That
They
was
may not
included.
be here those new trucks may not be here on day one. I think there was a grace period of 3 to 6 months when we were negotiating this contract back in 2022, 2023, early 23. There were still supply chain problems, and there still are today, procuring trucks. But they'll be here soon, real soon.
Last question to clarify, the ordinance that's before us tonight is not with regard to the initial contract that was established. This ordinance just pertains to cost increase that they have implemented prior to even providing service on April 1st. Is that correct?
That's correct. So just like most costs, most services, most products go up a little bit each year. Same with solid waste. So there's an increase of, I think it's 4.5% from the 2023 agreed amount to the 2024. But in 2023, they didn't know how much it was going to go up because it's based on the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. That's also based on some King County landfill tipping fees too. So.
Anybody else? Nope. All right, if there's anyone in the audience who would like to comment on this agenda item, we would love to invite you up to the podium to speak at this time. Anybody? All right, let's see if we have anyone, Phil or Bree, online would like to speak.
We do.
this would be
Thank
great.
you. Your Honor, we have Michael Thomas online who wishes to speak.
Great, thank you.
Good evening, Mike Thomas again, 1231 LaForest Drive, SE. It is unfortunately disappointing to see a rate increase on a service that hasn't even started yet. The optics on that are going to be very difficult to explain to citizens. Certainly, people are concerned by the degree the rates are going up. I would hope that folks might look to future opportunities to save some money. And my own personal experience is that the yard waste cart and compost cart is rarely used. Is there an opportunity to save some money by not running this service as often, or even only limiting to certain months of the year, or allowing citizens simply exclude it? I also find I have some questions around recycling, whether or not the recycling is actually going to recycling or ending up in a landfill. I think it's another matter. I personally find my recycling cart to not be full and not used. Is there an opportunity to save costs in the future to, for example, reduce recycling to every other week? I mean, it clearly is labor, wear and tear, and energy to run, yard waste and compost trucks, and for recycling. So I'd hope that folks might look as to optimizations to reduce runs related to yard waste and recycling. Thank you very much, and this concludes my comment.
Thank you. I know it came through TVW. Chairman Colin, would you like to make the motion?
This actually came through Finance Administration, but I'm
My apologies.
happy to make the motion to approve AB 24-022, an ordinance increasing solid waste and recycling rates and amending the city's taxes, rates, and fees schedule as a result and final reading, first and final reading.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Ms. Colin and seconded by Mr. Tramalata. All in favor? Oh,
I would like to speak to it.
Yeah. apologies.
I don't think anybody sitting on council likes raising fees on any services, but it's been over 10 years. Things have changed, unfortunately, and we're raising them on ourselves. We get these same bills, so we don't want to do it, but sometimes it's necessary. And I do think Recology will be a better provider. I'm hopeful anyways. And I think we're going to see some good things from them. Definitely some great customer service and more recycling options. So I'm hopeful that it's going to be great. Thank you.
Mr. Tremolata, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I think one thing that needs to be highlighted, which is why I kept asking you about the landing pages. I think people are concerned, the sticker shock, but the reality is it's really apples and oranges, right? We were comparing, what you need to compare is where the rates would be with Republic today or April 1st, as well as like Recology. The costs were going up regardless. And I will say that I think there was a loud contingency, and my neighborhood was one of them, when we had a couple big snow events and sort of how we were treated from a customer service aspect. I think people remember that didn't go well, and the city stepped in and provided some options. But hopefully Recology took note of that, knowing they're coming into this contract with some expectations of service. So hopefully they take that into account. And I agree. I think the service will be much better.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? Thank you, Ms. Rustick.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm going to vote no on this ordinance. The bid process, Recology selection and approval were done by the previous administration and council. The approved contract with Recology nearly doubles the monthly rate for residents. In addition, the contract allows Recology to raise their rates at the beginning of each year. This ordinance would allow Recology to further increase the rate before they have provided any service. For these reasons, I'm opposed to this ordinance and will vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Joe.
Yeah, but Councilmember Colin hit it on the head. None of us like to see fee increases. I trust in the city's competitive bid process, the hiring out to Epicor for good consulting services, folks who do this for a living, not just here, but across the region had eyes on this. They received multiple competitive bids. And out of that process, this council in its wisdom, after an extended process, made what we felt to be the best choice for the citizens of this town based on the options that were provided to us, which we did not have control over. It was a take it or leave it proposition. I wanted to remind folks who live here that there is an ordinance on the books, 8.12.005, that does require mandatory garbage service. If you live here, you are required to be in contract with a garbage hauler. I'm aware of that. That's a pretty stiff hill to climb, but there's a reason. That's so people don't collect trash and then go throw it in the woods, which is likely to happen. So we're forced to, as individuals and similarly as council, engage in this type of a relationship, hopefully to our mutual benefit and the benefit not just of those who live in the town, but those who live proximate to the town and nearby. So there's reasons. Part of what we do as a council is come to the best choice we can for the greatest, in my mind, to benefit hopefully the greatest number of people. And sometimes that costs money. There's plenty of tension between public service and private service, private haulers, and different ways to go at this. But in this part of the world, as with cable providers, there aren't all that many choices. So based on the options that came before us in our due diligence, this is the decision that we came to. I will point out the council packet of March 21st, 2023 that we voted on and finally approved has this, under this Recology contract, the cost to have a 32-gallon garbage cart, which is what I have. I think it's what many residences have. You can have a smaller one, and you might think about that going forward. The cost goes up 94%. Under the contract with Republic, the current hauler, the cost would have gone up 103%. So in fact, for the residents, people living in homes with 32-gallon garbage carts, we made the cheaper choice of the options that were presented to us. I think that's really important. Following the direction from council, staff worked very hard and diligently with our third-party representative to negotiate with Recology and actually continued to bring prices down based on what was originally proposed in their contract to the city. I want to acknowledge that. I think that's important. This contract hopefully does provide for an improved level of service. When I go to buy something, I usually don't buy the cheapest thing off the shelf. You do get what you pay for. And we've certainly been promised, and there are penalties. There's performance metrics that are steep. $500. If somebody doesn't pick up your garbage, the Recology's on the hook for $500, folks. Just to be clear about it, there's like 24 different performance metrics in this contract that allows this city and the folks, the staff who I trust, to hold them to account. I think that's important. There's credits for missed pickup. As Councilmember Tremolata alluded to, much of what brought this on was the absolute lack of responsiveness and acceptance for any responsibility whatsoever from the current hauler. And if they had behaved differently, we wouldn't be here having this conversation, at least about Recology, I don't think. I think that's important. Recology King County is locally and worker owned. We talk about people being able to earn a living wage and buy homes and live in the communities that they work in. This is a locally owned business and not somebody in Texas who were part of the complaint from the explanation from Republic was they couldn't get through Snoqualmie Pass. Well, I have no idea why Republic felt they had a need. I think it's because they don't know the turf and they don't live here. So I think that's important. So I am hoping for an improved level and quality of service. I think there is some small part of this that falls on us. I think they are a much more environmentally sound company with that front and center. If you compared the contracts that we were provided, one of them talked about sustainability and pressure of a changing climate and forward looking towards waste streams and diversion and lots of things. And that's Recology, the people we went with. And there is a composting service. There is a recycling service. And I certainly planned it, I'm gonna cut down to a 20-gallon cart. I'm able to. My children are not at home. For many people, I'm not suggesting that works for everybody, but that's an option. And there is then a little bit of pressure on us as individuals maybe to do a little better. And I think that's important. And the company is dedicated to better environmental practices, a cleaner fleet. And that's why I will be supporting this evening. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Jocelyn. Anybody else I forgot? Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Christina. We haven't even started the service. I mean, the vote's already been taken last year of going with a new provider. But we haven't even started with the provider and they've already decided to raise the rates on us. We literally haven't even started the service. So I think it's in bad form. And I also will not be voting for that tonight.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, motion before us is to approve AB 24022, an ordinance increasing solid waste and recycling rates and amending the city's taxes, rates, and fees schedule as a first and final reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No.
Opposed.
Okay, so we have nays from 2 people tonight, so Rustic and Torgerson. Okay, it does follow and pass, so 5-2. 4-2. Forgot about Brendan. I'm sorry, Brendan. Okay, item 10, AB 24023, motion to authorize a memorandum of understanding regarding Snoqualmie Valley Economic Alliance. Mr. Henderson, would you please provide the report tonight?
Great, thank you, Mayor, and good evening, council members. The Snoqualmie Economic Alliance MOU began in the spring of 2023 as really kind of an opportunity to promote economic development efforts among the cities of Carnation, Duval, North Bend, and Snoqualmie, as well as with the King County Department of Local Services and the Snoqualmie Tribe. The MOU really provides a framework for the parties to achieve economic development goals that are of mutual interest. And it also provides a forum for the parties to talk about economic development issues, problem solve together, and then foster collaboration. As you can see in the draft, in the MOU that was presented to you in your council packet, the MOU consists of what we call 11 interest areas that were developed by each of the parties to support economic development. This includes supporting local businesses and help them grow and expand, engaging youth to explore careers in high demand occupations, strengthen local infrastructure and our downtowns, and then honor the Snoqualmie Valley Tribe and the economic benefit they bring to our community. The King County Department of Local Services will serve as the coordinating entity for the Alliance and will schedule regular meetings. Any projects that the Alliance undertakes will be done and coordinated on a project by project basis among the Alliance members. The MOU is non-binding and does not commit any of the signatories to any specific action. Although if we do apply for grants, there may be a financial obligation associated with that, and we would bring that to council in case that comes up. Duval and Snoqualmie councils approved the MOU in December of last year, and Carnation approved the MOU January of this year. And the Snoqualmie Tribe, as I learned this morning, is scheduled to consider the MOU on February 22nd. The MOU was briefed to the Community and Economic Development Committee on January 16th, and then we had a follow-up briefing this afternoon on February 20th. And that's my brief.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson. Does council have any clarifying questions? Mr. Tremolata.
On the point, James, about the grants, would the grant scenario be the MOU entirely going for a grant, or would it be one or two of the cities involved going for a grant? Is it when they apply for the grant, is it the whole alliance, or is it an individual city or a couple of cities together?
Yeah, great question. No, it would be the full alliance would have to basically agree to go after the grant together, and therefore, if there's a sort of cost associated with the grants or burden sharing, we would look at how we would distribute that among the different cities. But any grants that a community wants to go on their own would be on their own fruition.
Mr. Gottel.
Further clarify, he hit the question, but further clarify. So we are not bound if the alliance chooses to go for a grant, it will become before the council before we are financially bound.
Correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else? Nope. None. Okay, let's see. If any members of the audience would like to comment on this agenda item, we would invite you to the podium at this moment. If you have requested accommodation with the city clerk and wish to speak, please raise your hand if you're online. Oh, there you go. Come forward, Kelly. Please state your name and address.
Kelly Coughlin, the CEO of the Snow Valley Regional Chamber, and I live at 615 Ogle in North Bend. One of the things that I just wanted to tell you a little bit about, this Economic Alliance MOU started. So we realized back during COVID, we had the infrastructure issue, especially down in Fall City and Carnation and some of the unincorporated areas in around North Bend that did not have fiber optics, didn't have internet access, didn't have some of the cell service. And we tried really hard to get several grants, but we couldn't get all of the municipalities and everything together quick enough to be able to get that grant. So unfortunately, we did try for it, but we didn't have the all of the groups together. So this is how this actually started, was we realized very quickly that in order for us to be able to do some of this, we have to have this MOU put in place with all of our entities in Snoqualmie Valley. So I just wanted to let you know that, and it's a very important part of what we're going to be doing. And the grant that we were initially looking at was called the RISE grant, and we're still looking at that currently. But I just wanted to let you know that if any questions, I can answer them.
Okay. Anybody online, Phil?
Yes, we have Michael Thomas wishing to speak again.
Thank you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thanks. Mike Thomas, 1231 LaForest Drive, SE. Thanks for the previous speaker to explain the driver for this. I fully endorse another broadband option for our area. One thing, though, that folks might want to consider versus a non-traditional service might be something like Starlink or satellite that perhaps you don't need terrestrial infrastructure. And the way to solve this problem is to grant, folks the money for those that may be low income for broadband access. So I do like the idea of another broadband option. There may be other ways of addressing it, especially for those in more rural or unincorporated areas that don't have, fiber or cable. And certainly if, folks want to endorse, a local loop or additional, fixed network service, it would be certainly welcome to have another choice other than cable or fiber or copper services from all three of our local providers. Thanks, and this concludes my comment. And again, thanks to the prior speaker to explain the origin of the interest for broadband, which I would love to see another option. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to double check, Bree and Phil, do we have anyone else online?
No one at this time.
Thank you very much. Okay. All right, Council Member Jocelyn, will you please make the motion?
I move to approve AB 24023, authorizing the mayor to execute a memorandum of understanding, creating the Snoqualmie Valley Economic Alliance in a form and content approved by the city attorney.
Do I have a second? Second. Thank you. Motion by Mr. Johnson, seconded by Ms. Colin. All in favor? Oh, here I go. I just love jumping along. I'm learning. Okay, Mr. Johnson, please speak to your motion if you'd like.
I understand the interest. I think it's a wonderful effort by folks of common mind to, again, to improve the quality of life for those of us living here across, a range of economic circumstance. There is power in numbers. I'm pleased to see the tribal voice raised up and that they're in partnership. I think we, in interacting with them as our neighbors, we need to check in early and often. And yes, I'll be voting in support. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Jocelyn. Ms. Colin, do you have any comments to make?
I think this alliance sounds great. It's all our Snoqualmie Valley neighbors, and we should be working together. And I as well am glad to see the tribe involved. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? Mr.
Your Honor,
Delotta.
counsel, it appears there was one other member of the public that wished to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry. Robin, my apologies.
Okay. I didn't realize it was gonna like zip past us, like you missed it, because I'm normally quick on my feet and everything. Robin Balcom, I live at 246 O'Lally Place, I had to remember that, North Bend. And I love the idea of this. I love the chamber. My husband and I and our small business, we're members of the chamber and anything that strengthens our community. But I will also say, I love, what I don't love is the thought of having to partner with King County kind of in an oversight way. If I had my way, we would be cut out of King County and we would get to be with some other folks and not. So that's one of my things that kind of makes me leery of it, is getting sucked in. And I think that a lot of the people that move out here to North Bend are getting as far away from Seattle and as far an outskirt of King County as possible. And I think the phrase that came to my mind is all that glitters isn't gold. And sometimes something can look really good and there's not enough details in this for me to feel comfortable, particularly in this atmosphere of so much having to, in order to get any dollars, then you got to make sure you do all of the climate cult stuff, and you have to be sure that you do all of the diversity, and I kind of find for us, things tend to go to where's the minority thing, and it's like, well, we're just 60-year-old really hard workers in a small business and we're trying to make it, but it's like, well, too bad. And so those are things that I don't hear where the whole community, I think it's exciting, yes, to get the tribe involved, and it's exciting to bring all of these cool DEI, CCA, blah, 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 blah. But it's the common folk that are working really hard trying to pay for the garbage service and try to pay for the taxes that we're looking to see our community strengthening, maybe some other ways that aren't so big and grand. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Robin. Yep, Mr. Tremolata.
Yeah, so this came through our CED committee, Mark and Chris, and they heard many questions that I had asked on this, so I figure I should share for the greater council. I did have some reservations on this, a couple points that I will highlight. One, item 6 was brought up most recently, the local arts economy, which does speak to supporting King County's creative economy initiatives. I think there's some really good things in there. I think there are things that maybe don't necessarily apply to North Bend. And I spoke those concerns today. I think I love the idea of a regional partnership. I think it's critical for the future of North Bend. Some of the other concerns I had just generally, which is why I asked James about the obligations, and I'm glad that they are none per se, because not every piece of real estate in North Bend is created equal to the rest of the valley. I think we have uniquely the I-90 corridor that we can capitalize on that our friends in Duval maybe not so much. And but I will be voting in favor of this. I love the idea of it. I love the spirit of it. I love that Kelly is involved and James will be there involved as well, and that any financial decisions have to come to council first. So I feel comfortable with that. So I would like us to dive in full force and give it a shot and see what we can do. But just for council to know that those decisions in the future, I think it's important for us to make North Bend uniquely North Bend if we so see it. But we should certainly talk and partner with our neighbors as much as we can. So I will support.
Thank you, Mr. Tremolata. Any additional council comments? Ms. Torgerson.
Okay. I've read this quite a bit, and I really like the purpose of the Snoqualmie Valley Alliance, Economic Alliance, in promoting and coordinating community economic development efforts and to foster partnership with the community associations, the nonprofits, the greenways, which are our trails, school districts, the Chamber of Commerce to achieve economic goals. I love this idea. And in reading this, I was trying to figure out how all this is going to work. And I like a mutual agreement to have a mission and a directive that's specific and focused. I don't want to agree to something that's unattainable, undefined, and not transparent. And I found a lot of inconsistencies in this and things not connecting the dots. And and to keep this short, what I found was that there was all these different entities putting in what their issues were. And so that's what made it seem so disconnected. And my concern is I want this to be a good foundation to be able to bring all these people together, but with the way this is written, and if this does pass, I hope that it gets to be cleared up a bit. My concern is that it lacks focus, and because it's all over the place. You know, they have an issue over there, we have an issue here, and it sounds like we're supposed to, as an alliance, all come together and agree on something, but now if we agree on it, are we agreeing to be a part of that financial thing because they have an issue over there? Are they agreeing to our, I mean, it seems very undefined, and without definition, it makes it for me more challenging. It's like, how does all this fit together? And I feel like because there's so many people throwing in their ideas, and as time it got created, it has all these different issues that they want to address. It's not all together. It's not everybody, it's not an alliance. It's everybody's individual thoughts. So I'm worried about it. I want it to be successful, but I just feel like it, you know, it lacks the transparency. The idea definition is not good. There's not a clear goal for everyone. So because of that, I'm not going to support it. I guess it's going to pass, but I feel like there's too many cooks in the kitchen and they just didn't really make a good defined direction. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Torgerson. Anybody else I've left out?
I believe we can pull out of this at any time in the future if it isn't working. Okay, so thank you.
Yes,
Thank-
that's correct. It's non-binding. We can pull out at any time. And actually, one additional thing to add is that after 2 years, the parties basically of the alliance agreed to revisit the MOU, see what's working, see what's not working, and make any changes, and then re-sign if they see fit.
One more.
Yeah, and James just thought of something. Will we be getting this alliance sort of updates from you kind of on a rolling basis of if there's anything to note?
Yeah, I'd be happy to provide updates in the CD committee or through email, whichever works best.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Okay, the motion before us is to approve AB 24023, authorizing the mayor to execute a memorandum of understanding, creating the Snoqualmie Valley Economic Alliance in a form and content approved by the city attorney. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
Thank you. Motion passes 5-1, and Ms. Torgerson dissents. We move on to mayor, council, and administrative concerns and initiatives. Let's see. Let's start with Ms. Torgerson.
Oh, wow. I think I'll pass.
Oh, that's fine. Ms. Colon.
In regards to the different power outages we had, I would like to thank PSE for being out in the dead of night in an ice storm in horrible conditions and working as hard as they could to restore our power in a timely manner. I would also like to thank Tanner Electric for being out in horribly windy conditions, getting our power back on. These people risk their lives and I'm very appreciative. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tremolata.
Yeah, echo the thanks for Tanner and PSE. And I think my experience with my neighbors has been great. Everyone's been checking on each other when these things happen. So I love seeing that. I will also heed a note to the public that after ski week, Little League Baseball is kicking off, our SVLL. So there's gonna be some baseballers running around Torgerson in the public areas, and just be wary. There's going to be a lot of after school activities around City Hall and Torgerson and all the fields.
Thank you, Mr. Tremolata. And right next to me, I'm going to go actually with you, Mr. Pro Tem.
You're gonna jump. Confuse me there. Same thing, echo the same sentiments of my former council members or council members about the hard work that the power workers did to try to keep us up and running. And to echo the thought, I'm excited to see the baseball and things start coming back, which always reminds me that please be careful out there. We will have people walking. But it still gets dark early, so please slow down. Take a couple extra minutes when you're coming into this area. It might save a life. In closing, I just wanted to also make a comment. I talked about the retreat we had, and I thought it was well attended, good conversation, good start to the year, and I'm looking forward to working with this council and the items that we agreed to in that retreat. And thank you for taking your weekend, one of your weekend days away from your family and everything else. I don't think people understand the sacrifices that the council members make in order to serve here. And I want to thank you all for doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gotthealth and Ms. Rustick. Yes, and thank you to the staff for participating in the weekend as well. It was much appreciated. Just a reminder that it is Girl Scout cookie time, so support a local Girl Scout. A portion of the proceeds from their sales do help them go to camp, including a local camp here in the Snoqualmie Valley. So yeah, that's all I had. It's great. And Mr. Jocelyn.
I guess I've got cleanup. Just to reiterate, the last two members, the retreat, I thought was very productive, and I appreciated it, appreciated Michael's help and staff as well, and all their support in taking time out of their weekend as well to be with us. So thanks, everybody. That's it.
Thank you. And Mr. Miller.
A couple of things. I think Mr. Rigos has been working with the Utilities Commission at the state to make sure that our grid is reinforced and that trees are removed when they're near lines for PSC. But I can tell you a personal story that we had a large maple go down on Moon Valley Road and cut access to the road off, knocked lines down for both PSC and for Comcast. And they were out there at 2 a.m. in the morning till noon the next day, taking the tree out of the area, off the road, repairing the power, which they did. And Comcast was about 2 days in getting their lines fixed. So I think they're doing a really good job, but I think there needs to be, like there was in California, where we had all the fires, we had explosions with underground gas lines that had not been looked at in years. They went through those about 10 years ago and replaced tons of gas line. And they're doing a lot of work on the grid now, and rates have doubled in California because of that. And I think we're going to be looking at a similar thing here, because I'm sure PSC doesn't want to be in the same liability position that the utilities in California were when these large fires occurred. So it's a bigger problem. We're looking at it at the large level, but I think they're doing a lot of really good things for trying to prioritize us and taking care of our energy needs as fast as they can. I want to thank the council for their effort on the work study. I thought it was really productive, largely because the council really was invested. And I think we have a great work program. We're going to be bringing many things forward. We're going to be talking to our pro tem really quickly. We have a draft work study schedule based upon the scheduling we talked about at the meeting. So we will have a calendar for you for work studies in a couple of weeks, which I think is a good thing. And just so the council is aware, I have sent a very detailed information request to Snoqualmie with regard to staff that was on duty in the last 4 years, because I know we've had some lack of full staffing, yet we've been paying full board that whole time. And I want to make sure that we were getting our money's worth. I'm going to have a lot of detailed information coming to me, and I'm going to probably be getting together with the Public Health and Safety Committee and reporting what I'm finding from that information. And I think that will have a lot to do with whatever we do for police services in the future. And certainly if we enter into another contract with Snoqualmie, we're going to have elevated performance standards that can be monitored on a monthly basis. And we really want to know exactly what happened this last 4 years. And is there any nexus or connection between the crime and the number of people on duty and the resources that they had available. So really want to bring some more information back to you that is data that can talk about the level of service we've had so that we have a more elevated discussion about the service and know what service is being provided. So just wanted to make you aware of that. The request has been made and they're putting that information together for me.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. The Real Twin Peaks Festival is this Friday, the 23rd to Sunday, the 25th. It's happening in North Bend, Snoqualmie, and Fall City. Folks can go online to get tickets at www.therealtwinpeaks.com. And it should be a fun event. Come out if you can. Chat with the chiefs is an opportunity to talk with about public safety in North Bend. Stop by Heartwood Cafe located at 202 West North Bend Way on Thursday, March 7th from 10 to 11 a.m. to chat and meet with Snoqualmie North Bend Police Chief Brian Lynch and Eastside Fire and Rescue Chief Ben Lane. Bloodworks Northwest is hosting a blood drive at the Eastside Fire and Rescue Headquarters located at 175 Newport Way Northwest in Issaquah on Monday, February 26th from 9 to 3 p.m. You can sign up for an appointment on the Bloodworks Northwest website. And at this time, I'd like to have an emotion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, we're all jumping in. I think, okay, we have a motion made by Ms. Colon and seconded by Ms. Torgerson. All in favor?
Aye.
Have a great night, everybody. Thank you so much for your time.